this. I put the fireplace on my TV because it makes my apartment feel a little bit warmer and cozy. But this week I'm gonna be doing, again, some more Christmas decor ideas for you. I'm tackling kind of some dupes, I guess, today. So I took a couple items that I really loved from Anthropologie, but as you know, it is a little expensive there, and I recreated them for so much less and love how every single one of these pieces turned out. So let's get into these DIYs. So starting with this beautiful piece here to hang your stockings, I love it, but it's $160. I mean, come on, who is paying that for this? So I went to the thrift store and I found this beautiful little sled, and it was about $4 or $5, and basically we're just using the bottom of it. It was the closest I could find to the Anthropologie look. If you were thinking, Janelle, lucky find, not necessarily so. Honestly, there was a couple other sleds there I could have chosen that day, and since I have been back to the thrift store and I've seen a ton of different sleds. So they're out there and for pretty cheap. Now, here's what you want to keep in mind when you're picking up your sled. Just find something that's easy to detach the top from the bottom. I struggled with this majorly. And honestly, it's mostly just because I didn't have the proper tools. I thought my hacksaw would be able to get through the welds on the bottom here quite easily. But my hacksaw has seen better days. It's not too sharp, and it's just kind of an awkward thing to try and get through. Eventually, this happened. Whoa, that's scary. And it kind of came off like a piece of cake there. So after that, I then just decided to kind of bend some of these wire pieces down. It kind of helps recreate the Anthropologie look a little bit better. Gave it a thinner profile, which it also had. And then I bent these pieces out to kind of give a grander front of the sleigh. So I sanded this off just because there was a little bit of scratchy metal there from the welds. But what I ended up doing is completely cutting these pieces off. Ideally, it would have been great to just plop the wood down on top of that, but there was quite a big gap from where the curls on the sled there were, and it was just going to look awkward and it wasn't going to look right. It was going to be too big of a gap. So again, taking my hacksaw to this, thinking I could cut through it easily, and with a good hacksaw, you could. Eventually, I managed to get through that wire, and what I thought I would do is simply bend this down because it was so easy to bend the wire when I was doing those curly things. Not so much. Eventually, this was a long project. I managed to just cut off all of those pieces. I have two separate rails for my sled, I guess. And I'm going to show you how I connect the wood with it in just a bit. So these two little curly pieces here were on the back. I detached them really easily, and I'm going to repurpose them for our hooks to hang our stockings with. Now, yes, the Anthropologie one has 4. This one only has 2. Whatever, it's not going to be exactly the same. I attached it with some zip ties, and this is going to be covered up pretty well with some gold spray paint. So these needed to be spray painted anyways, even though I liked the look of the first gold better than the spray paint gold. There was chipping and scratches, and it just needed to be covered up. So now that we have our 2 rails here, or skis, whatever you want to call them, we're going to attach a little piece of wood. This is a scrap piece that I had at home, so it didn't cost me anything, and I'm just marking out where I need to drill a few little holes for the wire to go into. So I'm just making sure that that's even on both sides with my measuring tape. And you need to be very careful if you're doing this the same way that I'm doing, that you don't drill all the way through the wood. You want to go about halfway through the wood, which this is pretty thin, so it's kind of tricky to do. Just take it really slow with your drill, and make sure your drill bit is the same width or the same size as your wire. That way, when you put it back in, it's going to be nice and snug and hold it pretty tight. But to complete that, to make sure that it's fastened well, I use some construction adhesive to put this together. Now, you could probably use some hot glue, if you have that on hand, but I had the construction adhesive and just figured that'd be a better hold. So I allowed that to dry overnight, and then the last step of this is just sanding down your piece of wood and then staining it. And again, I had this all on hand. I finished it off with a polyurethane clear coat. So in total, this project cost me just the cost of the sled, which was $4 or $5. So much cheaper than the $160. But if you had to buy the spray paint and the stain and the polyurethane, probably Maxis is going to set you back $25 to $30, way better than the $160 from Anthropologie. So next up is this wreath. This is in their Christmas section. It's a eucalyptus wreath and it's $78. I do think this wreath would be great year round though. So what you're going to need is an embroidery hoop. You can usually find these at the thrift store. You're just going to need 1/2 of one. And then you're going to need some eucalyptus. Now you can obviously buy this at Michael's. It is not the cheapest thing to buy, but you can also look at the thrift store for it. Now, this is actually real dried eucalyptus, and this is a very small portion of a massive bundle I got for $2.99 a while ago. I've done other DIYs with it, and I've also decorated my home with it, with different arrangements. So if you're thinking this again is a very lucky find on my part, not so much. I go to the thrift store regularly, and I see this dried eucalyptus regularly in the floral section. So make sure you check that out. Sometimes it's in arrangements. Sometimes you can just get it in bundles for pretty inexpensive. So you're just going to build your wreath out. It's quite bulky at the bottom and then kind of wraps and curves up around those hoops. This one isn't exactly like the Anthropologie wreath because it's not quite as full and it almost looks like they have two different types of eucalyptus in theirs. But I think this is not bad considering it cost me a total of $4. And lastly, again, with the florals, seriously, do not overlook this section at the thrift store. I picked up these 4 bundles for just $7.99. And the white stuff really reminded me of this bundle from Anthropologie that you can buy for $38. So there are 2 green bundles there, which is a color in my home. The white I'm not going to touch, but these blue ones I'm just going to slightly alter, and all I'm going to do is just kind of separate these. It is a bit of a pain in the butt to do so, but you separate these and then I'm going to simply spray paint them to make sure that they match my decor. Now you can't probably do these with all florals, but definitely some florals you could get away with doing this. And again, I know I use this gold spray paint in a lot of my DIYs. It's a staple, but it's because gold is a accent color in my home. So then you can just simply arrange this. It's very wintry, and this cost me $7.99 versus like $38 from Anthropologie. So do not overlook the floral section at the thrift store. All right, so I want to know which one of the 3 was your favorite. You can leave that down in the comments below. And this is the second time I've done kind of like a dupes video. Seemed to be quite popular last time, and yes, I did do Anthropologie last time. I do plan to do some other stores in the future, so feel free to leave what stores you'd like me to recreate decor from down below in the comments, or you can reach out to me via Instagram or on Twitter @JanelleSteeper. And of course, don't forget to subscribe because next Wednesday I'll have a new DIY for you. Cheers.